Well, this weekend in Hattiesburg, a big rivalry is renewed for the Battle of the Bell between Tulane and Southern Miss. So I thought it a perfect time to bring in one of the best gunslingers in Tulane football history, a guy who spent 5 years in the pros and now he's a Louisiana sports media star. So I'm trying to get like this guy. So my friend Lester Ricard. Lester, how you doing, man?
Man, I tell you, what a pleasure. I can't just, give you your flowers enough, man. What you've done with your podcast, the interviews have been exceptional, man. I've watched every one of them over the last, what have we been going now? I say we because I'm a part of the family.
Man, I
So
appreciate
with 6 months,
episode 31 with some
wow,
special
man.
episodes.
Wow, man. And your guests have been all great, exception from athletic directors at Southern Miss to past coaches to current coaches to great players now and past, man. You're killing it, man. You're killing it, man. Even though I'm not a big Southern Miss guy, you're killing it, bro. You are.
Yeah, that means the world to me because you know media and you and our guy, Aaron Lee, another Louisiana sports
Yeah,
media star who's a Southern Miss
that's
guy.
right.
Y'all go at it all the time. But y'all had me on your
That's right.
show,
That's
and
right.
we got to talk a little smack last year, which was a lot of fun. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
that, man.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
with
yeah,
that
man.
said, last year's game, Lester, we
Hmm.
came into New Orleans and got the W. So
Yeah.
what's the vibe from Tulane camp? Is it revenge? Is it let's go
Uh,
up there and take care of business? What's coming out of Tulane camp?
well, it's revenge. It's being 1-0. It's payback. It's get the bell back where it belongs. It's all those different conversations that's going on in New Orleans. And obviously, last week coming off a tough loss to Ole Miss, you want to get back in the win column, and that's the most important thing than anything else. Is that coming off a loss, a game in which they played Ole Miss very competitive. They fought with them for 4 quarters. I think with Michael Pratt not being there, they just kind of lost some juice late in the game. I think if Michael Pratt would have played last week, we'd be looking at a Tulane team now in the top 20, undefeated right now going into the Southern Miss game. But I think the conversation in New Orleans for my friends from what I'm hearing right there on St. Charles Avenue is that we got to go 1-0. But importantly, this means a lot for a lot of us Tulane old heads who experienced that rivalry, like you and myself, back and forth, year in and year out. It meant something. When you all visited Tulane, I'm 100% sure that Southern Miss had more people in the dome back then than what we had in Tulane. And I took a lot of pride. I went 0-3, unfortunately, against them. But I still say this day, like that was the game that I most look forward to every year. And I think Tulane, knowing the rivalry that's there, they appreciate it. And I think that this is important for not just our era of players, but the current Tulane era of athletes as well.
Man, I couldn't have put it any other way, man. We've been
Yeah,
looking for a real rival for a while when y'all left the
yeah,
Conference USA, but we got one rival where we have a trophy, and it's a big
yeah,
belt, and it's Tulane, and it means a lot to, like you said, the old heads and the new heads are kind of getting into this vibe, though,
yeah,
man. But you
yeah.
hit on something. So you and I text a little bit every now and then. If there's one
Hmm.
thing people know that watch this show and know me, I'm not an Ole Miss fan in the least. I was cheering you guys on
You're
hard,
right.
man. So, and you know that. I was
Yeah,
cheering you guys on.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm a New Orleans guy, too. I want to get back to
yeah.
game one. Something else we texted
Hmm.
about playing South Al. And I'm supposed to cheer for the Sun Belt, but I'm a New
Oof.
Orleans.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever heard a tourist say, I want to experience Mardi Gras for the first time. I'm going to Mobile, Alabama. I've never,
That's
ever,
right.
ever heard that.
That's right.
They came in decked out like they own Mardi Gras,
Mm.
insulting the city.
Yeah,
You guys smacked them. What was that a little extra
yeah.
pissed off? I mean, if what you
Oh,
will from Tulane?
yeah, absolutely, man. And that was a conversation, at when they showed and premiered what they were going to be, wearing that. I think it was either a Wednesday or Thursday. Came out with their whole, the home of Mardi Gras. I don't like if Tulane was excited about playing game one because before that happened, I was sitting there thinking like, Tulane maybe a touchdown, 10-point favorite. I think that added a little salt on that wound, man. And you can see the students. I've never seen a bigger Tulane student section in my life like I did at the South Alabama game, man. You were talking about 5,000 students. And from what I heard, they turned it around to like, I think it was 1,500 other students at the gate because, I mean, you had people who had bought tickets to be into the game. But, man, it really felt good to beat them, not just because of the whole Mardi Gras thing. Like I know, They're 10-3 a year ago. They're going into this year feeling like, okay, can we take that next step as a program and really catapult ourselves as being maybe if there's an opportunity for them to go in AEC, how does South Alabama look in that conference? The other part of that we can't underlook enough is the recruiting base that New Orleans is. And that being a Jesuit guy, all the great St. Aug players and Carr players and Brother Martin players that come there. Schools like South Alabama come in to try to put their imprint in the city so they can come in and recruit that great, rich area from Booty, Destrehan, the West Bank, the Best Bank, right? Algiers, you talk about the New Orleans East crew. You kind of move out towards La Place and East St. John and St. George Catholic. South Alabama want to come in and put their foot down and say, hey, listen, instead of playing football right here, hey, won't you make that trip to Mobile, Alabama? To go back to your previous point, my wife's from Trinidad and Tobago. I've never heard her dad say, hey, listen, I look forward to coming down to Mardi Gras this year and going to that old city. I think it's called Mobile. If he looked at that on the map, he would call it Mobile instead of Mobile. So that tells you how much people care about Mobile, Alabama being the home of Mardi Gras or whatever, the origin of Mardi Gras. If they were the origin, we took it from it and we own it now in New Orleans. That's for sure.
Man, Leslie, you got me fired up, man. Because look, I love the Sun Belt. I love being in the Sun Belt, but I love New Orleans. That's my hometown. That's my city. I love Mardi Gras. I love gumbo. I love drive-through daiquiris. Don't come in and insult my city. So I was a big Tulane fan that day. I gotta admit, man. So, but great take right there. Yeah. And speaking of this game, one thing cool about it, our head coach Will Hall was your offensive coordinator down there and built a pretty good reputation for what he did. And your head coach Willie Fritz was the head coach, and they have an awesome relationship, man. Talk about the vibe between those two head coaches a little bit.
Well, not only their relationship, then he brings Jordy Johnson from Tulane right along with him when he left Tulane and came to Southern Miss. But, man, listen to me. Anybody who talks about Will Hall on Tulane campus only speaks highly of the job that he did in that short time that he was there. I think it was 2 years, came over from Memphis as co-offensive coordinator, tight ends coach, and came and really, I think Tulane right now is, you look at some of the Nick Saban offense, right? He always gives your boy down there in Oxford a lot of credit to Ole Miss and kind of jumpstarting that offense. I think that you could say the same thing with Tulane and Michael Pratt. Will Hall jumpstarted that young man's career. And by him coming there and putting the foundation on the offense, Willie Fritz was kind of a speed gun, triple option type of offense. He had Justin McMillan had transferred from LSU. That was his quarterback. But Will Hall brought that really play action, deep ball mentality to Tulane's offense. Really played and coached the intermediate part of Tulane offense at a very high level. And I think what you've seen with Coach Nagel taking over, he's added his imprint on it. But Will Hall built the foundation of Tulane's offense. And every time they play, man, it has a stamp on it. It has a stamp. And so, I think Willie Fritz, you'll hear all the conversation this week about how much he's indebted to what Will Hall did to his offense and what he brought to the table, the nuances that he brought in their run game, because I think Tulane is kind of living that revelation of what he was able to do in his short time there in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, you won't find two head coaches that admire each other more than Will Hall and Willie Fritz. So, they'll shake hands before the game, but, when it's time to play, obviously.
It's over.
One more time, Michael Pratt. I mean, to me, easily one of the top quarterbacks in America, future NFL star, if you ask me. What's his take this week, man? He going to play or not? Because he's a total difference maker.
Yeah, he is, man. And we talked about it earlier. I think if he plays against Ole Miss, Tulane's sitting there 2-0 right now. But, man, listen, he's dealt with this the last 2 to 3 years, is that he's taken too much of a beating. I know Tulane returned 4 or 5 offensive linemen up front, and then the other guy that comes in is Cameron Wire, who's a East Ascension transfer out of LSU. I was hoping to see him be protected a little bit more. And I think maybe, you kind of go back to how Tulane felt about South Alabama really showing like who runs the city type of mentality. I wish, looking in hindsight, they would have pulled Michael Pratt a little earlier from that football game. We'd probably be looking at Michael Pratt being 100% going into this Southern Miss game. I'm hoping he plays, but I like to see Michael be 100%. That's important to me. As a quarterback, I don't like to see quarterbacks beat up. I like to see guys, playing at their full strength, and even for Southern Miss, I would like to see them at full strength. But man, oh man, we have got to we've got to protect them better, and we've got to be able to run the football better than what we've done the first 2 weeks. And if you want a quarterback's best friend, I don't think it's a tight end. I think it's his running game. And I think if we can find a running game this week, playing Michael Pratt and how well he plays in play action, I think will bode well for us this week. But hopefully he's healthy.
Well, yeah, when the offense flows, I mean, y'all are as good as anybody and tough to stop.
Yeah.
Flipping sides of the ball, the defensive front, your front seven, man, they're good. So what's your take on the front seven to Tulane?
Yeah, man, playing really well. I thought, losing Will Anderson, who, currently on the Saints roster, and then the other guy, Dorian Williams, who was a third rounder with the Buffalo Bills. I thought those two guys, losing them on the defensive side of football was going to hurt us tremendously. But these two guys, they got, man, a transfer portal have just been punching and plugging away. One of them's a Jesuit alum, I'm pretty sure. He went to Louisiana Tech. And
I like him already.
Some about you Jesuit guys at linebacker. Y'all some tough cookies, man. Brent Quick, all you guys that came out of there are tough as nails, man. But, I was really concerned about them going into this year in that front seven and losing Will, using Anderson as well as, Dorian Williams this year. But those guys have really taken what they did a year ago and taken it to the next step, man. For them to give Ole Miss the fits that they did and to shut down a soft Alabama team that thought that here you are with a returning running back, your returning rusher, to shut that running game down, man, has really done a lot for us, man. It really has.
And looking at this Southern Miss game on our side of the football, like the offensive side, for example, what's some weapons that kind of worry you and might keep Coach Fritz up at night?
Yeah, man. Listen, one thing about you guys, you all are not shy about running the football, right? And we almost a microcosm of each other, right? Of what we like to do and what we don't like to do. But if you look at us, we're really mirror images of each other because of Will Hall, of what we talked about earlier, what he did at Tulane, that style of offense, that big play action. And that's what they did last year against Tulane. Hit him on some big play action passes. Obviously Frank Gore, the third or junior, he's Frank Gore, all right?
Frank Gore Jr.
He got him going last year. And I think that's where Southern Miss wants to be. They want to be in, really those second and manageable situations, those third and manageable situations. That way you don't put too much pressure on your quarterback, man. But so I'm really excited about this matchup, because obviously last week was Florida State, and you can ask these good people down here in Baton Rouge. Florida State is kind of from Baton Rouge to Hattiesburg. They kind of own us right now. You know what I mean? So driving I-10, we call Baton Rouge part Tallahassee, call Hattiesburg part Tallahassee, get the Mobile, Alabama, that's part of Tallahassee, get the Pensacola, that's part of Tallahassee. Everybody's, on this I-10 corridor, is feeling Florida State's wrath. But I think that Tulane matches up well with Southern Miss because they've been able to play so well up front. I think we do a really good job of shutting the run down and then putting pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's where we can give Southern Miss some problems. I really do.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of problems, gave a lot of people. I know we got the win last year, and you guys, but y'all had a magical run. I mean, won the Cotton Bowl, beat USC, a sea of Tulane fans up in Dallas, and top 10 finish. What did that season mean to you and the Tulane Nation?
Oh, man, it meant everything, man, to the point. So my wife and I was in Trinidad and Tobago, and I had to take my wife there because that's where her family's from. We hadn't been there in 4 or 5 years to see her family in Trinidad. And so we were there for about 3 weeks last year. And I can tell you, we were sitting there in her aunt's living room watching the game, hugging each other, crying when Tulane came back and they called they reversed the call on the field and they called it incomplete, and they go back and look at it on the monitor on instant replay, and they said he makes the catch. Play is good. We just hugged each other and we cried, man, because of what that meant for us. It was a testimony of those dark moments from when I played there, having to endure Katrina, those dark times of switching out coaches. You go from Bob Toledo to Curtis Johnson to now you got a guy who's been a stable at Tulane and Willie Fritz. It meant so much. And I know those old heads back in that 1998 years would say, that's the greatest football team when they went undefeated with Sean King. But to me, and I lived it, right? PJ Franklin was a wide receiver, Amy Warrior, and for my money, last year's 12-2 run, that's the greatest Tulane team in the history of that school. I don't care if you go undefeated or not. That is what they did and what they meant for that program. I hadn't seen anything like that in New Orleans ever in my life.
Well, I'm a New Orleanian. I have a strong pulse of Tulane football, and I'm not going to argue that's the best Tulane football team I've ever seen from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And man, for us to pull out a win last season, maybe we just caught you on the right night. But we'll tee it up this weekend. But you hit on something. From 2003 to 2006, you were at Tulane. You wound up being a 3-year starter for them. In your 2005 season, right before the season kicks off, you talk about tough times and learning to live through tough times. Katrina hits the city right before you guys are about to start the season. Walk everybody through a season where you guys played 11 games at 11 different stadiums.
Yeah, I mean, that was no tougher moment in my football playing career than the 2005 season. And really, we were coming off finishing strong my sophomore year, right? I break my wrist versus Army. I get pushed down the first play of the second half on a 14-yard completion. I look up, hand is broken. We have all this momentum going through spring, fall camp, and we look up, and here's Katrina coming, right? Saints are playing against the Baltimore Ravens on Friday Night Football, last preseason game of the year, and here's Bruce Katz, a person you'll know. He's on the big screen at the game saying, "Hey, listen, might want to evacuate, might want to get out of the city of New Orleans. There's a hurricane coming." Nobody really took it serious at the time because you know this. How many close calls have we ever had, right? It's been a million of them, and it turns right and turns east, and we don't get anything. But this son of a gun didn't turn, and when it turned straight up New Orleans to I-55, straight up through Hattiesburg and everywhere else. It just destroyed. So, man, we had so much momentum going into the season. We were actually going to play Southern Miss game 1 of the season on ESPN2. And that's how much momentum we had going into the season. And we had to miss that game, obviously, because the hurricane. We go into game 2. We play Mississippi State. We hang there with them. We lose a close game, 21-14. We go on the road to Southern Methodist, beat them 31-14 on the road. We come back, have to play Southeastern for quote-unquote homecoming in Tiger Stadium. We jump on them 14-0. They make a comeback. We ultimately win. And from there, it just was downhill. And I can remember the turning point of that season was on our way to play the weekend we were going to play against Southeastern. Coach Selvo thought it would be a good idea for us to just stay at English Turn. Some big Tulane alum had bought, I think it was like 100 air mattresses for us to sleep at the English Turn Country Club. And I can remember getting to LaPlace, getting out the Spillway, and looking at the city of New Orleans and Kenner. And we were kind of clowning, listening to music. No one spoke again until we got to the English Turn Country Club. We were just like, we will never come here again. Like New Orleans would never be New Orleans again. Like you couldn't imagine, right? And I remember being at that game against Southeastern, threw 2 quick touchdowns back to back and 2 drives. And coming to the sideline, I looked, and there was no joy on my teammates' faces, right? We are 14-0. And I think it just sapped the energy out of. From there, we play Houston the next week. We jump on them. There's no joy. And the joy we did have, it was all fake. The next week, we play UTEP. Jump on them. They come back and beat us. There was no joy. We go to Marshall. Play them the following week. There's no joy. Ultimately, after those 3-4 losses in a row, we play Navy in Indianapolis. And it was the worst football game I could ever imagine. That's the first time I ever thought in my life someone's going to score 100 points on a college football team. Here's how the drives went. We go 3 and out, incomplete. They run after we punt it, they run it back. We get the ball back. When they kick it off to us, we fumble. They get on this 2-yard line. They score the second play. They kick it off to it. We fumble. We recover. 2 plays later, I throw an interception. They run it back to like the goal line. Let me tell you something, Marshawn. It was 35-0 with 10 minutes to go in the first quarter. and I felt helpless. I just felt helpless. Forte and I were just standing there like, he's like, "You okay, Les?" I'm like, I don't know if I am or not. I'm just playing. And we were dropping balls. We wound up only losing like 56 to 7. I know that, but looking at it, it looked like he was about to get just horrible. And that's when I know we lost to Rice that year. We lost to Tulsa pretty bad. And the last game of the season, ultimate, was against Southern Miss. I remember talking to Coach Bowen, and I was like, man, if there was a transfer portal and I'd already left LSU and came to Tulane, I was like, man, this is the place I want to be, because Dustin Allman was graduating a year. But man, it was tough, man, and it was tougher. My girlfriend, who's not my wife at the time, she was a swimmer. They were at University of Texas El Paso. She would call. She was getting homesick. I was missing her. I was getting in the car after games. As soon as we get done playing, jumping and drive 5 hours to College Station. Me and like 3 or 4 of my teammates who had girlfriends were on the swim team as well. It was a grind, bro. It was a freaking grind. So wasn't easy. We came back. We played competitive at times my senior year, but I still think there were some trust issues lost between players and coaching staff, because there were so many things that some have been documented, some of them haven't been documented. That just the player-coach relationship was broken so deep, and we never recovered, man. We just never recovered, and I just I thought we had something special brewing. Katrina just like came and like whoop, whatever plans you had, God just whatever and that's kind of the funny thing, right? I'm a big believer in faith, and whatever my plans were, like He wanted to alter them, and whatever reason He altered them, I'm happy to this day. And it sucked as a football player, but I have a beautiful wife, I have a beautiful babies here at the house, and God worked it out for my good. So I'm ultimately have to look at that and count it all joy, bro.
Man, Lester, thanks for sharing that story. And that's why, like, when me being a New Orleanian, people that love the city so much know what it's really about. It's a special place, and that's why a season like for you guys last year, what you did, it mean a little bit more than the average city team. It just does, man. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're right, man. And I guess that's why I cried, right? Me and my wife, we cried because she knew what I went through going into my wife's senior year. All right, so let me just kind of paint the picture. 2004, my wife goes to the Olympics. She comes back from the Olympics from Trinidad and Tobago. She comes in the Conference USA Female Athlete of the Year her sophomore year. She breaks every Conference USA swim record at the conference meet. Tulane wins the conference. And then going into her senior year, they cut the swim program because of funding, because of Katrina. And so I had to watch her earn her scholarship through having to film football games, stood at the top of the dome. My wife, I'll never forget, Marshawn, she would, like, when we would play action, she would take that camera right with the play action all the way down the field. And then when we go back and watch it, the all 11, and then I'm throwing it, she doesn't see any of it because she doesn't know anything about that, right? And I remember Frank Selfo saying, "Who filmed this game?" I said, "Watch it. Linda did, bro." He goes, "Why is Linda filming games?" I said, "Because they don't have a swim program. This is how she's earning her scholarship." But it was tough, man. It was tough, man. It was some grit and grind, and we got through it, man. I have my degree. She has an undergrad and master's from Tulane, so it all worked out for us, brother. It did.
Yeah, anybody that knows a Tulane degree looks pretty dang good on a resume.
Yeah, it does.
Congratulations with that. Now, I want to talk about it back to Southern Miss Tulane a little bit. And thank you for sharing that story. Incredible, man.
Yeah.
3 years you played against the Golden Eagles back when we were pretty dang good, man. What was it like playing against Southern Miss and that nasty bunch defense?
Oh, Lord. Rod Davis. I mean, do I need to say anybody else's name besides Rod Davis?
I'm going on record, my favorite Southern Miss football player of all time. I mean, I love me some Rod Davis. That's my guy.
Hey, man, let me tell you something. JP Lawson would probably tell you the same thing I'll tell you. He put fear in both of us, all right? And I wish he would have gone pro after JP turned pro, but then I guess he had some more to prove by knocking me out the game. And then you had the Cooley brothers. They were so good, man. Gosh, man. I never forget that same year they beat us. Game one of the season, I don't know if you remember, in 2004, they go on the road and beat Nebraska at Nebraska. And that sounds like in 2 weeks we gotta play these. These dudes are serious. These dudes are serious. That's both linebackers. Coley had Cooley, Davis. All right, I don't know how they got those names all matched up, but they were putting fear in God, and everybody they played, man. They played with such a. You talk about the nasty bunch. They had such a nasty persona on that side of football, man. Their defensive coordinator back then was a nasty dude. He didn't play, but I knew him from, I don't know how, I think I knew him from football camps or something like that. And after the games, he would come by and hug me. I'm like, dude, like, I thought we were boys. And I felt like he was sending 12 dudes instead of 11. Like somebody's got to be open. He's sending 11 dudes to me. There's no way that nobody's open. His secondary was special. D-line was nasty. Linebackers were just icing on the cake. And, man, it was fun, man. It was great to watch film because they disguised everything so great. There wasn't a play that back then that Southern Miss defense, they didn't just line up. They walked around. They were muddle huddle. They would lurk. They would walk. Safeties would come all over the place. They were starting too high. One guy would be at the line of scrimmage. They snapped the ball. He's now backing too high. The other guy rolls in some type of quarters coverage. Linebackers blitzing. They're zoning out with a defensive lineman. Dude, it was so impossible to pick them up back then. And I'll never forget that same exact year they beat Nebraska. That was the same year that TCU came down to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, thinking they wanted some smoke. Sure enough, they sent old undefeated TCU back to where they came from with an L. They were that good. They made a statement, man. They did, and the Rock was jumping. There was no place like the Rock, bro. And I hope Southern Miss gets back to those rocking days, man, because they used to, that steep stadium that looks like it's going horizontal up to the heavens, man, that place used to be loud, brother. It was loud.
Oh, what a take right there from somebody who knows it from ground level. And I couldn't have put it any better. I mean, people used to go to these games for a long run. The offense would do some all right. When that defense came on the field, it was time for the crowd to get hyped. And I remember a Sporting News sports writer in early 2000 when we weren't really losing a lot of games at the Rock. He called Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Hadesburg, Mississippi, Hades, because it's a hell of a place for opposing teams to play. I'll never forget that, man. But they had a whole thing about it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I'll never forget. My father was, my dad's a pastor. He had to run a revival in in Hattiesburg. And this is when I'm, 14, 15 years old. And we driving through and he says, hey, son, let me drive you over here to the stadium that old Brett Favre played at, one of my favorite football players of all time. For some reason, one of the back gates were open and he brought me on that field. And I remember like, wow, that's my first time in a college football stadium, my first time in a football stadium. And I thought it was amazing to just see that place and to see how once they packed it up. And it's just so funny. A good friend of mine who I won the state championship, Adara Edwards, he started there for 4 years out of Amite, played offensive line and center. Guys, just seeing him there and flourish. Adara had an opportunity to play in the NFL. He just wanted to get his degree and go on with the rest of his life, man. But that place is when Southern Miss is winning, and I know people like to brag on the other two SEC schools in Mississippi from that place. They can't hold Southern Miss candle in terms of atmosphere. They can't. Maybe I'm being biased because I hate them that much, but man, it was something to behold, man. It really was.
Man, you hit a nail on the head. That one thing that Tulane fans and Southern Miss fans vibe with. We're in the shadow of these SEC schools. We got Ole Miss, Mississippi State. You guys got LSU. But was it extra special for you guys knowing the best team in the state of Louisiana by far last season was in New Orleans, Louisiana? How cool was that?
Man, it was awesome, man. It really was awesome, man, because you're looking at all the rankings. We've always kind of been behind LSU and everybody else. Lafayette got a great run, and for us to be the top dog. And I would tell you this, and I want to go backwards a little bit, right? You can go back and look at Lester Ricard's history. I never beat Southern Miss. I beat Mississippi State my senior year. All right, on the road at Mississippi State. 4 touchdowns, 320 yards later. Matt Forte, 140 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns receiving. I didn't quite have the same success against them old nasty boys, man. But, man, I'm telling you, they put fear in you, man. They really did. But, you know, it was great last year, man. Tulane just being the king of the state. It was awesome, man. It was awesome.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully it was kind of getting to closing things up. These Southern Miss and Tulane fans, everybody watching this, gets a vibe of this rivalry from two guys who were part of it for years. And so, Lester, let's kind of get into some nitty-gritty stuff here. We'll do expectations and predictions, so maybe a score if you want to. But first up, what's your expectation to see out of Tulane football this weekend?
So one thing I want to see, and I think they're going to get back to running the football and running it with some physicality. Obviously, in the words of Rick Pitino, Tajay Spears is not walking through that door again, right? And so we've got to get these backs. Hughes, Shad Clayton, who's also a New Orleans boy from Warren Easton, in the backfield. We've got to get back to establishing that line of scrimmage, being physical up front, because there is a probability that Michael Pratt doesn't play. I think defensively, we're in a really good place. I really believe that. And I have not looked at the Southern Miss injury list, all right, from last week's Florida State game. I do expect somebody's got to be somewhat out. I don't expect all 11 starters on offense and defense to be after that one last week. But if you had to pull a prediction out of me, all right, so I'm pulling a backup quarterback versus starting quarterback. Starting quarterback plays, I'm going Tulane 45, Southern Miss 21. I know that's a stretch because last year I was nervous about the game. And I hate to tell you, not quite as nervous as I was last year. But if Horton plays quarterback, I'm thinking 24-14, and Tulane guts it out. And Mason up plays late to kind of give himself a little breathing room late in that fourth quarter.
I love that. Look, let me give my expectation and prediction. So my expectation is kind of some of the vibes you hit on. I'm challenging the fans this week to bring back the rock that I know. Where it was a mean, salty environment, chip on your shoulder. It was Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's what I'm expecting this week, and I expect these players to forget about Florida State. You play football long enough, you're going to get your tail whipped every now and then.
That's no doubt. Absolutely.
But I took some beatings. It just happens. Play it long enough. But the Rock, you can control that atmosphere. So I expect a little old school vibe at the Rock. My prediction, I'm going Southern Miss 28, Green Wave 21. That's all I got for you.
Well, last year, man, you predicted it, and I was upset. And I'm sitting there with you, and my wife is like sitting down. I'm like, look at Marshawn. Where's a football so I can throw it and hit him while he's out there? He's got the whole Southern Miss clan sitting there like hyped up, cheers. I'm like, dude, go home, man. Go home, bro. And he's like, your school president, AD, and Will Hall going crazy. I'm like, oh, no, I can't deal with this. I cannot deal with this. I think we return the favor this year, big fella. I do. All right? I really do.
It is going to be fun to battle for the bell in Hattiesburg, Mississippi this Saturday.
Let's go, man.
Be there. It's going to be a special environment. Lester, I'm so glad the friendship we've made, but this Saturday we got to kind of put a little bit aside.
Yeah, man. I'm sitting behind Tulane side now. All right? I'm just letting you know. My wife and I talked about this. Where you want to go to the room in Hattiesburg? I said, no, I just don't trust their sheets and the food for this weekend. And I don't know, whatever, they might put something in our room knowing that we coming. So let's stay in Gulfport, Biloxi, and we'll just take that hour ride, come over to Hattiesburg. So just to be safe, brother, just to be safe.
Well, the heady smart move from a true rival. I get it. So, but Lester, always good seeing you, rapping with you. You know, inside this show, and may the best team win this Saturday. Yeah. Hope to see you at the Rock.
Yes, man. Hey, I see you on Saturday, man. Good luck, man. And let's have some fun, man. Hey, have some food for me. Have something for me. What you got up there in Hattiesburg for me, brother? Can you have something on deck for me, man? Besides, I know you want your win, but Give me some pointers. What I need to do? What do I need to do?
I'm a New Orleans guy, and they got a couple places like Crescent City Grill's great, man. Great seasoned food. If you want a simple burger, they got Ed's. I'm not trying to take anybody off watching this because I'm friends with a lot of restaurant people. There's a lot of good places to eat, but that's some of the places. You might want to test. And Ward's fast food, you can't beat that.
Okay, good. I'm all about fast food, man. So, hey, man, I can't wait to see Lil Man. I told Lil Man, listen, because we're going to enemy territory, he's going to have his whole Patrick Mahomes Adidas outfit on. So, all right, I said, listen, I want to make sure I will walk back to the car. It's very seamless. So, y'all are a great fan base, bro. Y'all are a great fan base.
Tulane, too, man. I'm a New Orleans at heart. I love the rivalry. Yeah. So. I'll see you soon, Lester. Thanks so much for being on the show. Tulane legend.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.